The main
one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. I just ask anybody who doesn't have your microphone on yet to put those on so that we can be heard for taking the minutes. So let's start the meeting. If there's any members of the public who'd like to come forward and make a comment on anything that's on the agenda. Seeing no members of the public, I'm going to close public comment at 5:16. Oh, before I forget, Gary Swanson is excused tonight. He's away traveling for work. Public correspondence. Any members of the board receive any correspondence that they want to note?
I did want to mention that the outdoor committee from the NES PTA reached out to schedule a follow-up meeting, and Sean is trying to schedule a meeting to kind of give them an update on where things stand in terms of outdoor playground.
Great, thank you. Ooh, we're a little echoey right now. Thank you. Board comments and committee updates. Any committees met since the last time we were together?
No.
We'll keep them in order.
Teacher Growth and Evaluation Committee was previously scheduled for this past week, but has been rescheduled for the 22nd. So we would have one, but.
Okay.
I think I'll be going to the, whatever committee I'm on, next week. Well, SST,
Oh,
yeah, and
master
then
plan.
master plan next week. And there's going to be some kind of an election on Tuesday, the 13th for,
Yeah, we'll hit that in 1 second if
Okay.
that's all right. Jeff, budget committee doing anything yet? Or?
Yep, we did have a budget committee meeting, or actually I should say the meeting that we held, that was policy, correct?
Yep.
The budget committee meeting has been shifted to May the 19th.
Okay.
So we'll be having that meeting on the 19th.
Great. And like Jeff mentioned, the school board policy committee met on Thursday of the week before school vacation. Under board comments, I will point out, reinforce that on Tuesday, the 13th, at Town Hall from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. is the election for the Newmarket Charter Commission. The town will be electing 9 members to review the town charter, which is something that's just a good idea to do every decade or so. So I think the last one was a little over 10 years ago. And they'll be going through, and whatever recommendations they make for changes, edits, updates will go in front of the voters on election day next year, March of 26. So come out and vote, and we'll get a charter commission going. Any other board comments before we move on? All right, thank you. We'll move into our student representative report. Olivia.
So softball has an away game today at Franklin. They're currently 6-0 on the season, and then next week they have a home game Monday versus PCA at 4, and then an away game Wednesday at Epping at 4. Baseball has an away game they had an away game versus Farmington last night and won 20-0. They are currently 7-1 on the season. They have a home game right now, which probably ended because they were winning like 13-0. They have an away game Monday versus PCA at 4:30, and then away game next Wednesday versus Epping at 4. As for track, Clipper relays are today at Portsmouth, so that's going on. And then as for some clubs, Salt, next Tuesday we're gonna get together a subcommittee to go over the athletic contract and see if there are any changes they want to propose. Next week, Monday through Wednesday, is rivalry week against Epping. So Monday is Rhyme Without Reason. Tuesday is color day, so we'll wear red, and then Epping will wear blue. Wednesday, Epping doesn't have school, so instead of like a dress-up day, we're just going to count the softball and baseball games as points. And hopefully we win and get the trophy back. As for Net Zero, today was Bike and Walk to School Day, so we had some baked goods out in the lobby for people who participated. Interact, Newmarket Cares Day has been planned and is scheduled for May 23rd. And then Student Council they've worked on a surprise for the teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week, but it's going to happen Monday because they have a lot of baked goods already today. Student government and council campaigns are also starting, so that's going on. And then as for just some other stuff that's going on, AP exams have been happening, and then lots of end of the year things are coming up, so prom, wellness day, senior week, graduation, and the end of school.
When is prom?
That is the 16th, so next Friday.
What's the theme?
It's like the Great Gatsby slash Roaring Twenties.
Tied into the 100th anniversary
Yep.
of Newmarket.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah,
The
definitely.
100th anniversary of,
This Newmarket High School, that 2024 was the 100th anniversary
Oh, really?
of this facility, yes. There's a display out in the cases
Oh,
up
yes,
there on the
that's right.
history of
Thank you.
of the school. And the students have been doing activities, and the prom is one of those
great,
roaring 20s.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Because that was the environment when Newmarket High School, or this building was originally built.
Yeah, and definitely anybody who hasn't had a chance to come out and see a game, bring your galoshes and personal flotation devices. And hopefully that won't be necessary in a week or two, but I understand the fields are a little soupy right now, so.
In fact, the baseball team had a home game yesterday that wasn't really a home game. They had to go to Pittsfield to have a home game.
oh, really?
That's a trip.
My first grader is playing softball theoretically, but for the past 5 weeks or 4 weeks, it's been 2. So she has yet to play. Interesting.
All right, superintendent report.
Thank you. Actually, one of the things I wanted to start out with, we made a number of what I think are very positive changes on our website this year, and recently there's been a lot of really good content on it. One thing I do want to mention is Mr. Corbin and myself were challenged in the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Oh,
There's a
I saw
lovely
that.
video there of us getting, and Olivia very kindly took care of dumping water on Mr. Corman. But I got to tell you, I saw Bill Furbush from Epping, who was the one that challenged us to that today. And I said, I got to tell you, I watched your video, and it was pretty clear to me that the water wasn't very cold. Because we had really cold water, and our reactions could not have been covered. And he didn't even react at all. Anyway, but there's that. The Ice Bucket Challenge video is on there, but there's also some other really good stuff. If you haven't had a chance to check out the mural at the elementary school, there's a beautiful picture of the mural on the website that's it's just stunning. Please take a chance to check it out. And actually, we're starting this new feature on the website with profiles of staff. And there's for a while we had Assistant Principal Erin Milbury was on there for a while, and now it's Nancy Miller, grade 1-2, a profile of her. And I'm told there's more staff profiles to come. So anyway, if you haven't checked out our website recently, take an opportunity to do it, because I know there's a lot of effort to keep it up to date, keep it with really good and relevant information like next year's school calendar and stuff like that. Secondly, I did want to just mention at a future meeting, Jason Carey and Chris Reeves will be here to talk to you guys about the online registration project that we got going on. Next year we will have online registration for all of our returning students. So we're going to be launching that in the coming months, but before we do that, Jason and Chris will come and give you an update. And I know what you're thinking, Chris Reeves, Superman. No, there's a different Chris Reeves, I just want to mention. But I'm sure he gets that a lot. Couple of updates I wanted to give you just from the state of New Hampshire, just because I can't stay positive all the time. A lot going on at the state level. One of the things that I was at a superintendent meeting today, and a lot of the conversation was about all of the various amendments that have been added to the proposed budget from the House, House Bill 1 and House Bill 2, which is basically the whole operating budget. But there are countless amendments that have a potential to impact public education. You know, there's things about education freedom accounts attached to it. There's things about open enrollment schools attached. There's lots of things. And so it's very complicated. It's one thing when you think of the budget as being a document that is about finances, but when you're trying to attach significant policy changes to funding, it gets more complicated. So just keep your eyes on it because there's a lot going on there. In fact, Kathy and I were talking before there. The other thing that has started happening because there is I don't know if it's a political movement, but what they are doing is they're putting what's called non-germane amendments onto bills. So there was a bill proposed for to deal with reckless driving, and an amendment was added to that to require K-12 gun safety classes. So stuff like that has started percolating up. I want you to know that the NHSAA and many organizations are keeping their eye on it and doing what they can to push back. But there's a lot that is happening, so keep your eyes on that. The other thing I did want to just mention is that SB 297, which we talked about a number of times to do with the whole pooled insurance coverage, that looks like a version of that is going to pass for sure. Just a question of how restrictive the actuarial calculations are for how you determine rates. My understanding is as of now, Health Trust continues to say if this bill passes as presented, they're going to leave the state or they're going to dissolve. Obviously, that's a pretty extreme statement to make, but again, just know that that's still out there, something to keep tabs on. And the other thing, it looks very much like some variation of open enrollment is going to pass. Open enrollment, for those who don't know, basically it allows students to go between districts regardless of residence. So for example, if a student in Newmarket wanted to go to Oyster River or vice versa, there would be no barrier to prevent that. I mean, the system has been based on residency, and we've had what's called manifest educational hardship as a reason that a person could give to go to a different school, but there's always a process. In fact, this board probably remembers at least once or twice we've been presented with questions about it, and we've granted a few of those because there were legitimate reasons to do that. But what is looking like it's going to happen is universal open enrollment, which would be just, I can't even express what that might mean. I mean, if on July 1st, every kid in the state can go anywhere in the state to school, how you control for that and how you manage that. I mean, there's a lot of, I will tell you, there's a lot of panicked superintendents out there. Yes.
Is there an application process at all for this, or?
Well, they're public schools, so they're basically what has been, I mean, it's public schools, so
Yeah.
you're not able to limit based upon that. The only provision that allows schools to say no would be if they didn't have the capacity.
Okay,
So so it would challenge school districts to do a deep dive into their actual capacities and determine how many students they could or could not support. I will tell you the school districts that are most concerned about it are the smaller districts like us, that people might choose to go to other larger districts that are perceived to be higher performing or something. And once you start siphoning off a lot of students, it does have a diminishing returns effect. Eventually, we don't have enough students to justify some of the programs we have, and it becomes challenging. So anyway, something to keep an eye on, but some variation of open enrollment looks like it's going to pass.
one more question. And if I'm understanding this correctly, the sending district would be responsible to 80% of the
Correct.
tuition
So
to
the
the
way-
receiving district?
Correct. The way the current bill is proposed, the state portion, which would be the adequacy money, would follow the student, and then the resident district would be responsible for paying 80% to the receiving district. So what the law requires as created, we would have to put a line item in our budget for open enrollment tuition. And the first time we do it, it would be a crapshoot. We can all guess, like, how many kids are we talking about? What would that cost be? But obviously, if, let's say, 20 kids in Newmarket wanted to leave to go to, say, SAU 16, 20% of the SAU 16 tuition is about $20,000, give or take. So you're talking $400,000 from Newmarket would have to go.
20% or 80%?
I'm sorry, 80%.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so 80% is about 20,000. So it would be about $400,000 leaving Newmarket to go to wherever. So we would have to account for that. So it's just, again, I just bring it up because it's looking like it's going to pass.
Where did you say the state adequacy aid would go?
We'd follow the student.
Have you had any conversations at all with the bigger districts around us, Oyster River, Exeter, as to what they're making of this? I mean, historically, just going off of Newmarket's past experience, Oyster River has not been what I'd call welcoming to students from outside their district wanting to attend. How does that work if the residents of a district say, we don't want anyone?
Right. I think it's all to be determined. I mean, there is if you're on the receiving end of students coming to you and you have, because almost every district is seeing enrollments decline, so everybody would benefit from more students being in their school. So there is a financial incentive to take students. So I think that would to be determined. I think every district would have to do an assessment of what their capacity is and develop policies to define exactly what their capacity is and procedures to manage the potential. Personally, I keep hoping that cooler heads will prevail and somehow it won't happen. But again, it's in the language in the budget, so it's like it's going to take somebody making an active effort to remove it to make it go away. Last thing I did want to mention, I like to end with positive news. We did get word 2 days ago from the Supportive Schools Grant. I've talked about this multiple times. It's a grant that we were granted actually back in the fall, and basically it's for a development of a mental health support system for students. You know, MTSSB is what the jargon is, and we were given this grant in November. It's a 5-year grant, $150,000 a year for 5 years. But we then were told at the early part of the year that it was tied up in all of the grant funding that is being held up through the federal government's various actions through the Department of Government Efficiency. We were told this past week, this isn't exactly good news, but it's not bad news. The phrase they used was, our grant has not been identified for discontinuation at this point. That is good news.
I'll take it.
So to me, that's a win. They're saying, like, it's still possible. So we have been told by the grant agency within the month we should have a definitive answer. And to me, I'll take it. I'll take it as a win.
Here's to vaguely encouraging double negatives. Any?
I had to use the exact phrase they used. 'Cause I thought
That's pretty good.
And I do think, if anybody, there was the House session today about the voucher expansion bill, so if the public wanted to
What's that again?
look into the result of that. There was a House session today.
Yes,
Yeah, in fact, you were telling me that the House voted to
passed by
go
12
forward.
votes.
Yep. So and that's universal EFAs,
Yep.
correct?
Now it goes to Senate, now it goes to Finance.
And I do think that, just according to our rep, that there was a motion to limit commentary.
Yes, I
debate.
saw that too.
I think what is happening is the people who want to do it, and the people that are trying to make the point that it's not right are just, people are stop listening about it. I think what's going to tell the tale is the financial impact of it. And I was saying to Kathy before the meeting, Governor Ayotte has said she's very supportive of universal EFAs. However, the financial aspects of it and doing it all at once. She has serious questions about it. And clearly, if you've been following the state budget discussion, the House budget that's out there is about $500 million less than the governor's budget. And so giving away a significant chunk of money to EFAs at this point, while you already are down $500 million, I would be surprised if they were able to make that happen, but we'll see.
Any other questions for Todd before we move on? All right, thank you. Next up on the agenda, Mr. Corman, if you would come and give us the good news about NEASC.
Good evening, everyone. Apologize, I'm a little under the weather. Best you're going to get out of me. Presented to you folks several times. Our regional accreditation agency, NEASC, was here in, feels like a lifetime ago, mid-November, and visited. We got the official word from them in April that they had renewed our decennial accreditation for this building, which is very exciting. As part of that process, they go into great detail in their letter explaining the amazing things we've done. I just want to take a minute to highlight some of them. First one right off the get-go is the amount of time and energy that went into our development of the vision of a graduate. We had multiple stakeholder groups within the building, within the district, also within the community. We had many events within this space where we gathered input on what the community felt that they wanted to see from their graduates, and NEASC recognized that and wanted to commend us for that. Additionally, especially given what kids are going through here each and every day, they wanted to go out of their way to commend our counseling department as a warm and welcoming spot for students to address their needs. Students feel comfortable going in to have a quick chat or a deep, meaningful chat about what's going on in their life. We got commended for our teaching staff on specific and measurable criteria to provide success to students on assessments. We try to give kids clear rubrics and exemplars, and we're asking them to give us a demonstration of knowledge and assessments, which is evident. Kudos to you for helping support our recent hiring of a school support counselor. That has made a monstrous impact in how I operate this building every day. And NEASC recognized that and saw that, and she's a phenomenal asset to all of our students here. Additionally, the overwhelming community support as part of their visit spoke to about 25 parents of 6th through 12th grade students coming in a closed door session where they are essentially asked, tell us about your school. What works, what doesn't, be honest, be truthful. Do you think they spend your money well? Do you have problems? We want to hear about it. And overwhelmingly, the community reported back supporting the work we're doing here, both in words and in votes, and that goes obviously directly to budget and structure. And NEASC found the overwhelming support of the community to a school this size to be very commendable. And our ability to share out what we do here through, as we mentioned, getting water dumped on us and posting on our website, trying to connect out with the community as much as we can to let them know what we're doing. A bit of a spoiler, your next board meeting, we're going to have probably 15 different kids here talking about their experiences of our top 10 here, and we have some kids that just returned from Europe that want to talk about their experiences there, so you can see what our students are doing every day. And finally, the one that is really important to me is overwhelmingly our students shared with them, and our staff reiterated that they feel connected to one another. Every student in this building has a peer, a friend, or an adult that they have social and emotional connection with, and they know that that is a major priority here beyond just simply learning facts and figures. They did identify 2 areas that we need to continue to work on. Lo and behold, we actually identified them beforehand. The language they use is what we wrote. It was kind of one of those, I tell you what's wrong, you tell me this is what's wrong, and then I come back and say, hey, yeah, you're right, that is wrong. And it's the exact same sentence going back and forth. First one is a written document describing our core values, beliefs about learning and vision of a graduate. That was simply a timing thing. We have that information. We have posters up there all around the building, and we incorporate that into a lot of instruction. And the second one is one of the major pushes we're working on the latter half of this year with a lot of support from Patty and her office around consistent written curriculum across all the departments, so we know what we're teaching kids and can really point to these are the things you're learning in this course and how it spirals up to the next course and how things interconnect. Overwhelmingly positive report. very, very happy with this. The director of accreditation is a woman named Allison Geary. Generally doesn't do this, but she followed up with an email to Todd and I on just a personal note, being very impressed with the work that we've done in the last 3 years. That goes beyond just what they mentioned here, and she was commenting on just how much great work they've done. Speaking with some of the folks on the committee, when they bring this to their meeting in the middle of March, there's about 15 schools, and they sit around a table like you all, and they go one by one through each school. And there are schools that are 3 times our size in different states, and they spend 40 minutes talking about them, and then they go to a completely different school. And speaking to one particular person who was there, our size and scope and our ability to make change was second to none of anyone in the room. And she was really, really impressed with a school this size, with the resources we have and how we're using them, the amazing growth we've had. So I just wanted to share that with you. The work is by no means done. We're still working on it, but we've made some major goals and progress towards them. So
Great.
that's all I wanted to share.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
I thought you were about to say the kids were coming to pour water on us. We were going to have a longer discussion about that. But.
I just do want, while Andy's here, I do want to commend, I do think one of the things that has made the process work so well at Newmarket Junior Senior High has been the openness that you've brought to the staff to be transparent. And I think, I served on the NES Commission for secondary schools for 6 years and did those meetings that you just described for hundreds of schools and saw a lot of information about a lot of schools. And oftentimes you felt like the school was putting on a dog and pony show to try to convince you that something was happening that wasn't happening. And when you enter a process with an honesty and a transparency, the impact you make is much more positive because you're very real. And so I think it speaks volumes to the fact that the 2 criticisms were the things we saw in ourselves.
Yep.
And we said, yeah, we know it. These are things we got to do better on. And that's a credit to you, Andy. So nice job.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Andy's always a tough act to follow, but I think Jan is just going to knock it out of the park with this riveting presentation on photocopiers and printers.
Jason's going to add some flair to it.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry, Andy, you never had a chance.
In my old job, it was printers that kept me employed.
I believe it. They're a bane in any office.
I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Carey, but I would like to start with a mea culpa and an apology. An old form of letterhead was used on this document, and it will be replaced in the board packet. And I apologize to the board, that's my error. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason to talk about the rationale behind the photocopier lease proposal.
All right, thank you.
Can you hear me well? Let's speak loud. So tonight we're looking for approval on the lease for our photocopiers and printers. Give you a little backstory on where we're at, where we've been, and then ask for approval at the end. So back in 2021, we joined a 5-year lease, and we're currently in year 4 of that. So we're jumping in a year early, right? We still have 1 year left. We're looking to sign a new lease this year. Really driven by economic outlook, right? Tariffs, that's right, one of the big drivers. We're talking a lot of equipment and big price tags. So looking to get ahead of that, maybe get some better rates and better services. And this, again, includes replacing our entire copier fleet, all of our printers, and then adding 2 more printers. So, again, one of the big drivers here was avoiding costs, that unforeseen costs, possible tariffs, and securing predictable service costs through 2023. We're looking at total savings over the 5 years. It's not a big number, but it's still substantial. It's around $8,650 over those 5 years. Another main driver here was locking in the lease rates, so we're able to plan over the next 5 years for budgeting. And since we're currently in the last year of this current lease, we're going to keep that rate, which is 3.29%. Moving forward over the next 4 years, we'll go to 5.19%, and that brings us up to FY30. Part of this project is really taking advantage of PaperCut, which is a print management software. We've used it the last several years, but really only for Chromebook printing. We got all these Chromebooks, kids couldn't print easily, so we use PaperCut to help us out there, and it uses cloud servers to provide print services to those devices. What we're going to do is expand on that, and we're going to have swipe cards, so everyone has their door access card. They'll be able to print to a queue, walk up to any printer or any copier, swipe their card, release their print job. This is going to give us savings with orphan prints. So if a teacher prints something, it doesn't pick it up, that's money wasted, it ends up in the recycle bin. So we expect some savings there. We expect an increase in data privacy, so if someone prints out some confidential data, forgets to pick it up, that's not going to happen. They're going to have to swipe and collect it there. And we have a lot of prints per students. One thing is part of the service that we use for our managed print services compares us to other schools. They work with lots of other districts, so we can compare ourselves, good and bad, to other districts, and our prints per students they're up there. They're quite a bit more. So hoping to see a reduction there and really just implement this and achieve some savings. So that's one of the big ones. Talk about the timeline in a little bit. And again, part of going out to bid with this organization allows us to join other districts, other towns. And I think there were over 30 other municipalities and districts. So instead of us going out alone and getting prices on printers and copiers, we're able to get some deep discounts. As far as timeline goes, would be looking to get this new equipment delivered and the old stuff taken out of here sometime in July. Again, all year. Pricing will start in FY27 and run through FY30, and that total annual cost is $38,925. In PaperCut, we're looking to implement, we'll probably do a slow approach, get folks back in the fall, give them some training, give them some opportunity to enroll their swipe cards, get signed in, and then actually enforce it sometime early winter. We've learned the slow and steady approach helps with adoption. So we received a total of 6 bids. The bid tab can be found in the board packet. The numbers were really all over the place except for 2 vendors, which were SimQuest and Ricoh. They were within a couple $100 of one another. We've worked with SimQuest the last 4 years. We've had great service, great support using Konica gear. No reason to change, and the pricing helped support that decision. In the overall eval process, we're looking at equipment quality, cost savings, and service reliability. So, plus we have existing relationships with all the technicians that have been out here. It's just going to be a smoother transition. And so here's the official request for the approval. I'm just going to read it so I get it right. After evaluating all bids, we recommend that the Newmarket School Board accept the proposal from SimQuest, our current vendor, with a 5-year annual cost of $38,925.61. Further, in accordance with municipal law, we respectfully request that the Newmarket School Board vote to authorize the superintendent or his designee to enter into a 5-year tax-exempt lease purchase agreement with MST Government Leasing, LLC, as outlined in the attached document titled Vote to be Adopted. And we are requesting that the Vote to be Adopted page, the language be read on that page. And it's been a few years since you've done it. I think Gary might have been the one to participate last time. Which I guess will take place from the action items towards the end of the meeting. So.
Yep, okay, good.
Any questions about copiers and printers?
When you say, if I read this correctly, it's lease to own, so at the end of 5 years, are we going to have a pile of equipment that we might or might not want at that point? Is there a...
I think we do $1, is it $1 buyback?
Historically, what we've done, especially with this group, is, at the end of it, we write into the contract that the equipment is returned at fair market value, and they have to pay to get it shipped back. So that's what we did the last time. We used to have a vendor that we wound up owning it, and that was a little problematic, as you alluded to. So we try to put that into the contract if that's a condition of the contract.
All right, so we get residual value at the end of the lease on whatever's,
Right.
Okay.
Usually the residual value is, at the end of the lease, is somewhere close to the value of the cost of shipping things back.
shocking that.
That's why there's a 5-year lease, I believe.
Okay. But that'll get written into the final contract we execute. Other questions? All right, we'll act on these motions during our action items. Thank you. Board docs. I believe you have some encouragement and training for us.
Yeah, so, and I'm not going to actually do a training now, but I did want to share these documents with you. There is a video for the board to utilize. For those new to it, Board Docs is the platform we use for our board meetings, for our policies, and for our agendas. And one of the things that has come up a couple of times, there's been some questions about things that I think people just aren't familiar enough with Board Docs. I wanted to just take a minute to highlight a couple of things. One thing in particular has come up when we're accessing the agenda for board meetings. Each of you has a login account. If you're not logged in, you're not seeing the executive version of the document. But if you're logged in an executive, the section that's called executive content is only something that the board sees. So for example, tonight, there's an approval of a position, a staff position, and the resume of that person is in the packet. That's not for the world to see, that's only for the board to see because you're the ones making the call on that. And there are multiple times where there might be executive information that's shared for your knowledge, but it's not public knowledge. So it's important that you know how to log in, and so I think everybody does, but when you're perusing the agenda during a meeting and you want actual access to all the information, make sure you're logged in. There is a public-facing version that shows the agenda, but obviously none of the executive content is there, and I just wanted to make sure people understood that. The other thing to keep in mind is that our policy library is entirely in Board Docs now. For those of you new to the board, you won't recognize the incredible improvement it is over our past system, but certainly, Dan, you can speak to that. Our old system was largely a PDF document that every time you wanted to look up a policy, you had to wait for the whole thing to load, and then it was just a very tedious process. With this new platform, when you go into the policy section, you can do a keyword search for anything. If you want to learn about all the policies we have about dogs, you can just type in the word dogs, and it gives you every policy that references a dog. And by the way, there are quite a few. I did that search earlier today. So we do have policies that address canines. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure you guys had that opportunity. I would encourage people to take a look at the video. It's only 7 minutes long, but it kind of goes through the various nuances. And then there's a little document there just to talk you through accessing some of the various information. And if at any time you have any issues with accessing information for board meetings, Ellen is our expert on it, so just reach out to Ellen Needham, and she will gladly assist in any way she can. Okay? Any questions, thoughts on access of Board Docs?
Thank you for that about the login.
Yeah, it's confused me many times, and Todd isn't kidding. Our policy manual used to be just a disorganized mountain of impenetrable legalese. Now it's a very well-organized mountain of impenetrable legalese. So,
Change the wording.
yes.
I sit on that policy review committee.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Todd. Next on the agenda, let's spend some time talking about the calendar and schedule for school board meetings for the upcoming year. We're a little remiss. We normally go through that right after the election, but better late than never. I mean, big picture, just want to make sure that Thursdays at 5:15 are still a time that to give everybody a little bit of the history, we chose 5:15 out of a compromise between trying to start late enough that people, would be able to leave work and get here if they wanted to attend the meeting in person, and early enough that we wouldn't be keeping Todd and his team here until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. There's nothing magical about 5:15 in that respect. It's just the time that we landed on when we did this. So, as the current board, and I guess I do feel a little bad for Gary not being here, but that'll teach him to take a business trip. If there's anything, if there's a different time that works better for people, we can definitely talk about it. I know Todd also wanted to look through the school calendar for the upcoming year. We obviously try not to schedule board meetings during school vacation weeks. That wouldn't be very fair to our student rep, and a lot of Todd's team also plan their vacation around school vacations, so we don't want to step on that if we can avoid it.
So just a couple of, if I could add, a couple of issues I'd love to discuss. The last few years, we've only scheduled one board meeting in July, and we've generally split the difference and put it in the middle of the month. The rest of the time, we have typically used the first and third Thursdays of the month. That's been our pattern, with the exception of when it happens to fall late this month. The way it fell with April vacation, we would have had to have a meeting over April vacation, so we bumped it. So we generally, first and third Thursdays of the month has been what we've done.
So does anybody have any reactions, thoughts, suggestions?
Works for me. I think it's also, I think if we're, we hope that teachers or who might not live necessarily in Newmarket or staff that's attending, that they don't have to sit around and wait until late or drive home, all the way home somewhere that's maybe not right close by and come all the way back. So I think it works for me. But
Thursday at 5:15 has been working. It sounds like it's been working for longer than just I've been on the board, and I'm a fan of maintaining a schedule that can get a whole bunch of adults to sit in the same room together at the same time. So.
Yeah, if you look at me, you can tell I'm into inertia, so it continues to work for me. I have not heard Gary comment that it works poorly for him, so first and third Thursdays at 5:15, let's, we'll come back around to this in 2 weeks, again, just to give Gary a crack at this in the event that he has a strong objection, but let's pencil that in for right now.
And then one meeting in July?
Yeah, I was going to suggest for one meeting in July, if we could do it on July 10th, that would be the second Thursday. The first Thursday is 4th of July, or the evening of 4th of July, the 4th of July week.
I have a conflict that night.
Okay.
I'm going to a concert,
Oh, good for you.
the High Kings Irish concert in Laconia.
I was going to guess Metallica, but I'm always wrong about these things.
If we did it on, looking at Janet, just because I know that's usually a big financial meeting, if we did it the fall, like July 17th, would that be problematic for the business office?
That should work. Our financial audit is scheduled for the first week of August. So some of the items that I'll be bringing to you are things that are integral to closing our books and make decisions on. So the 17th should work.
All right, just, I guess, please, the earlier you can, via Todd, send those out to us so we've got time to look at them.
Yes,
We'll come prepared to act.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
So then,
Thank you for that.
so if we do July 17th is the one meeting in July, and then do the first and third generally, and we can confirm that next meeting?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just staring at the calendar, I don't see, the only month where the first and third would be an issue is January, and we're obviously not going to meet on New Year's Day, so
I don't know, I kind of was hoping, no.
we'll probably do the 8th and the 22nd, I would guess, for January. All right, we're tearing through this. Todd, can you take a bit of time and just give us a quick overview of the testimony you and Janice submitted on House Bill 675?
Actually, Janet, would you like to, you want to speak to it? While she gets up, I'll just to remind that this board back in, I think it might have been your first meeting as a new board, determined you wanted to sign on to a letter for this fair funding project, New Hampshire Fair Funding Project. You signed on to that. And as a result of the connection that Dan made with that organization, Jenna and I have been coordinating with the directors of that organization, and they encouraged us to submit our story, if you will, were the tax cap legislation to come up. And this past Tuesday, May 6th, was when the whole budget was being reviewed by the Senate Finance Committee, and this was submitted to Senate Finance. You want to just hit the highlights of what our main points were?
Sure. Just for those of you who aren't familiar, House Bill 675, one of the tenets of that bill is it would introduce a mandated tax cap for every school district in the state of New Hampshire. Districts already have the ability to adopt a tax cap should they wish to do so by putting a warrant article on and having a vote at their legislative body. But this would require it even in districts that might not otherwise want to have a tax cap. So, it's a little hard to estimate because they keep adding amendments onto the bill to know exactly where it's going to land. But we took a stab at it, and basically the way that it's written is the tax cap during the first 2 budget cycles, which would be fiscal year 26 and 27, would be tied to the average CPI, consumer price index, for the prior 2 years. In that scenario, while that sounds like it might be a very realistic goal to have, we used as our example of why that might be problematic our teachers' agreement that we just agreed to, right? So if you look backward at the CPI based off our prior budget before we negotiated with the teachers and had the legislative body approved of this new CPA, the amount of money that we would need to just satisfy the tenets of that CPA are almost eaten up by the whole tax cap, which leaves you nothing for compensating other staff, for increases in propane costs, electricity, so the like. So while it sounds really great on the surface, there are lots of things in a school district that don't necessarily follow a nice straight trend line. We have ups and downs because of the timing of things. So that's one thing that's problematic about the CPI. Even more concerning is after fiscal year 27, they're proposing that it be tied to either the 3-year average daily membership in residence, meaning the number of kids that are here every day, or the 3-year average appropriations, less facilities and construction. So starting with the first one, the 3-year average ADM, think of that in terms of what Todd just talked about with open enrollment schools where kids can go anywhere, right? So all of a sudden, we have the same square footage here. It requires heating, lighting. So if we lose 20 kids, we still have to pay for heating and lighting. And there are a lot of fixed costs like that. So tying it to student enrollment, which is no surprise to anybody, New Hampshire is officially the oldest state in the nation, or the second oldest, excuse me. We have an aging demographic, and there are just fewer children being enrolled in public schools. So most districts in the state have a declining ADM. So if you tie your number to a declining number, it's going to be less. The second option is to tie it to the average 3-year appropriation. Well, no surprise, if you look at your household budgets, the budgets in last year, there's inflation, right? So if you're going to look backwards and tie it to the average for your last 3 years, guess what? You might not have enough budget to pay. And then you add on top of that we're supposed to remove facilities and construction. Well, that's our bond, right? Which is a huge component of our budget. So now we're talking about calculating our budget, taking that whole bond out of the picture based off of just the remainder. So in any scenario we looked at, it was not favorable for Newmarket. And so that was sort of the testimony that we offered. And on a philosophical note, having a mandated tax cap really does override what's been a long-standing principle here in New Hampshire of local control, right? If the legislative body votes to adopt a budget or adopt a teacher's collective bargaining agreement, that's the way it's intended to be. We're paying most of the money here anyways, but to have the state say now, even if you want to do that, you can't, it just seems to fly in the face of kind of some long-standing New Hampshire principles, that live free or die thing. So anyways, that's the testimony we offered. We don't know how well it was received or if it had any impact, or but we're trying.
Senator Gray did respond and said he received it, so I do know that he received it, so that's he's the chair of the committee, so.
Well, there's that.
But it really, I do want to say, Jenna did an awful lot of behind-the-scenes math on this.
Yeah.
So much of this ties into looking at trends over time, and none of them really work in our favor. And just a couple of things just to remind the board, because you guys are just as involved, if not more so, in budget development than Jenna and I are. We have been very conscious of our per pupil expenditure and very conscious of not wanting big increases. And in the last few years, we have, out of our own decision-making, maintained budgets that were about the cost CPI, that aligned with it pretty well. We've been around 4%, which has pretty much been where it's been. And we as I reported to the Budget Committee this past winter, our trend in terms of per pupil expenditure is actually trending downward compared to the state. We are doing well managing our finances. It's just that if you throw in variables that we have zero control over and have no connection to the will of the people of Newmarket in terms of what they want. And if this cap had been in place 10 years ago, it would have been impossible to get this building renovated. It would have been absolutely impossible, because you couldn't do it. So thank God we aren't facing that, but imagine being a district that is facing some questions like that. It's very, very concerning. So anyway, we submitted it, and we'll see. It was in, I'm told, when the Senate Finance Committee met, they had 8 hours of various testimonies read in and submitted and so forth. So
9 hours. It went till 10:30.
9 hours, okay. So to how much impact one piece of testimony, I don't know. We'll find out.
My brother went to testify. He left. His name was called at 9:26 p.m.
Yeah, I won't. Other people much better and more qualified than me have scolded the legislature, so I won't belabor it. But just the other problem is you have so many different pieces of legislation that have something of a compounding effect on one another. The universal educational freedom accounts, the tax cap, the open enrollment, all of these things. I don't think anybody who's sponsoring any individual one of these things has put a great deal of thought into how they all mesh. And that the unintended consequences of doing all of this simultaneously, it's quite unmanageable. So, that's, I'll say my piece and leave it at that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jana. And we'll, moving on to the next fun thing on the agenda. So we, at our school board retreat, had asked Todd and his team, which in this case is principally Jana, to, as an early first step in developing our 2026-2027 operating budget, to put together the first cut at what we're calling a level services budget. The principle of which is we keep doing all the things we're doing right now with all the same people we're doing them with right now, and just apply what we know or what we think we know about what the cost, how the cost of doing those things is going to change between the fiscal year we're about to begin on the 1st of July and July 1, 2026, which is the budget that voters will be voting on election day next year. So Jana, and I don't know, between you and Todd, how you want to...
I think one of the things that I'd like to try to do, as Dan and I and Jana talked about whether we would wait and share this with you on the 22nd or to give it to you now. the idea to give it to you now is just to give you the basic information. Clearly, there's a lot to talk about here. What I'm going to ask Janet to do is just kind of go through the base assumptions that this is based upon. I think it's really important that people understand that predicting the economic future of Newmarket, the state of New Hampshire, the United States, the world right now is a very challenging thing. And if you go to world-class economists and say, tell me what's going to happen a month from now, they're going to say, I'm not touching that one. So please know that Janet has gone into a realm of, so what you have to understand is you have to start from some baseline assumptions. And I think I just want to say right up front, we can change the assumptions. You absolutely can. That's what budgeting is all about. You make assumptions and you try to build a budget that meets what you're trying to do. And I have said this many times when presenting budgets, Jenna and I always take the conservative approach. We would rather give you really bad news and then say, oops, we were wrong, it's good. I'd rather have that than the other way around. Say, oh no, it's a rosy picture, everything's fine, and oops, sorry. So we try to err on the side of conservatism. So anyway, Janet's just going to explain the basics of the assumptions this is based upon, and then certainly answer your questions, but I'm going to suggest that we save a deeper conversation for a later meeting.
Yeah, I agree with Todd on that. This is not a problem we're going to solve tonight.
Right.
This is probably not a problem we're going to solve before we get deep into the September, October timeframe. So hey, each member of the board, this is your show. And if there are things you want to dive deeply into, I'm happy to stay here as long as you like. But I just ask everybody to keep a reasonable scope of activity in mind as we go through this.
With that, Janet.
As we've kind of joked about before, the budget process can be a little maddening, right? Because here we are, finished in 1 year, haven't got there yet. We already have a budget approved for the next budget cycle, and what I've been speaking about and what I shared with you is for the cycle beyond that. So it's like we're living in 3 different budget cycles at the same time. So to Todd's point about the world-class economists, I'm not one of them. But what I did do is try and take the best information that I have at this time and project it forward. And it is a little worrisome because there are so many unknown factors right now. I'll just give you one example that was particularly challenging, talking just about electricity, nothing else, right? So in New England, our electricity is powered, a lot of it, by propane. We don't have natural gas, so propane comes in on a ship. We'll start talking about tariffs and things coming into the port. That could be a factor that could elevate it. The other side of the equation is we rely a lot on hydropower from Canada. Well, guess what? We're in a tariff war with Canada, and what happens if they decide they're not going to send us hydropower electricity anymore? So trying to predict a 1.5 years out where we're going to be just on electricity alone, it's challenging. And then we have many other vectors in this analysis too. But that said, we're not alone. Every company on the planet right now is kind of reassessing and trying to look down the road. What we tried to do here was basically look forward and put some reasonable increases based off of, so the base that we started with is the budget that hasn't even started yet, the one that will start on July 1st. The first thing we did is we added in our teachers' agreement premium, because when we approved that budget, the collective bargaining agreement was a separate warrant article. So we took the estimated cost for that and added it in to basically get to the real cost of what that would be. And then and we'll go into more detail next time. I've tried to be as absolutely transparent as I can about what my assessments were. I've included charts that show you exactly what premium I estimated for what, for different elements of the analysis. And probably to nobody's surprise, it's coming in much higher than we had planned. And last year, to Todd's point, we were about, with the teachers contract, about 4.5% increase. And what I've kind of projected here back with the napkin, with all the caveats that I've just mentioned, is looking like it's going to be about 8.82% level funded, no new programs, no new staff. That's a big number. That amounts to over $2,500,000, and most of us don't feel like that's a realistic place to be. So obviously, with that information, we need to kind of look through it and figure out what will be a realistic target for us to aim for. And as Todd said, we're going to go into more detail next week. On the 22nd. At that time, I'll also have some other things for you to share. So talking about the 3 different budget cycles, this is the 26-27. I'm going to be doing 2 sets of interim financial statements for you this year, just because of the uncertainty. Usually I would give you one sometime in May, after the close of the May books. We look at it in June. I'm going to give you one at the end of April, and I'm going to give you one at the end of May, so that we will get a narrower and narrower view of where we're coming in, just to help with projections. The other thing that I'm going to present to you next time is options for the retained fund balance, right? That's a choice that the board makes, what percentage you can retain. I've kind of calculated out different things, and based on the estimate of where, I've also been asked to create a cost to complete, meaning like, what do I estimate we're going to need by the end of the year? Where do I think that fund balance comes in? So you'll be seeing that next time when I come to. And our recommendations about retained fund balance, given the information we have at the end of April, we'll present that to you. Doesn't mean it won't change when we get the financial statements done in May, but we're trying to keep the board knowing what we know as soon as we know it, kind of thing, to keep you in line and share our thoughts and our ideas about where things might end up as we come forward. So the 22nd is probably going to be a pretty heavy financial meeting. But I think it's really important that we all kind of start looking at these trends and thinking about how we can serve the needs of
Salaries, benefits, taxes, and retirement. About 350-ish is SPED, special education.
I haven't done the math, but I trust you if you have. Yeah, I haven't looked at it from that vector. But.
Another 150 is assuming that the busing contract is, going to go up by a pretty material percentage.
And actually, it's probably worth pointing out, the bus contract we currently are under, we've had a sweetheart of a deal, because the contract was signed at the very tail end of the pandemic, and the provider, quite honestly, made a giant oversight in what they included in the contract, and they have been largely, SST transportation largely has been covered without us paying for it. So we know when what our next contract will go up. So that's why there is a significant up in that contract, just because we have to recognize that that's what's going to happen.
So again, my back of the envelope math is 1.8 million, give or take how close to reality our assumptions turn out to be, is basically educating students, special education, and getting kids back and forth from school. And the other 700,000 is everything else, utilities, tuition.
Sounds about right.
So that I mean that just helps me, I guess, calibrate the way I'm thinking about it, is because what that's saying is that there's, to me, what it says to me is there's 700,000 that is things that could be levers you could pull with only indirectly affecting education. Not that it's going to have no effect, it certainly will. That the SPED and transportation piece, about 400,000, we can't not do it. That's state and federal law. That's unavoidable. And
For now.
Then about, like I said, about 1.4 million of it is people decisions. Again, give or take, I appreciate that the assumptions are very conservative because we're standing a long, long ways from when this budget goes into effect, and you gotta allow for some conservatism in there. But in big picture numbers, that's what we're really talking about is, again, 1.4 million of people decisions, about 400,000 that is just state law and there ain't a thing we're gonna do about it. And then the balance of it are places that are going to have an impact. So
Janet, oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
If by some, magical means, for the next few meetings, we got the increased percentage down to something that we all felt was reasonable and doable, could the passing of HB 675 still blow that up and cause us to need to change that again?
Well, that's a really
Hypothetically.
great question. I think HB 675 is still fluid, like they're still amending it, they're still making changes. It's been really hard to nail down what exactly they're gonna land on. Because it actually, that bill, if I'm not mistaken, correct me, the bill failed, and then it got put into like kind of a rider on the budget.
It's a rider on HB 1, but it also still is living as HB 675. There's a Senate version of it that if it doesn't pass in the budget, it could get brought back to life.
Right. So we don't really know what it would look like, but that absolutely could have an impact. I mean, if we start talking about a tax cap based on the back of the napkin assumptions that I kind of calculated before, that we estimated in one scenario that the increase would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $840,000 a year. Well, the teacher's second year of the contract is like $767,000. So right there, we're almost at cap with compensating no other employees with an increase and not considering any of the operation side. So yeah, it could be very, very difficult if that passes.
I mean, based on the calculations of the first 2 years, if it goes into effect for next year, let's say, the 3-year average of the CPI is 4.3%. So applying that here, that means we'd have to shave 4.5% down, which is $1.3 million, give or take.
And as to the uncertainties, I mean, we're just going to have to live with a lot of it. We will drive my opinion, we will drive ourselves crazy if we sit here and try to game out every one of these pieces of legislation, because the other trend, unfortunately, that I feel like I see in Concord is bills that die don't stay dead anymore.
Right.
Depending on who wants them to come back to life. And so, again, we'll drive ourselves nuts if we try to sit here and game play all of this out under 40 different scenarios. We're just going to have to confront reality as it exists right now, and then if reality changes, we'll have to re-baseline it and deal with it.
And one thing, exactly to Dan's point, on the bottom of page 4 in this analysis, I did try to do a sensitivity analysis. So I said, okay, let's say my assumptions just wildly are off. And let's say what happens if it comes in 4% better than what I had, 2% better, 2% worse, 4% worse. And I think the point that when you look at the numbers, the entire swing of that 8% for better or worse, it's about $1 million. So even taking my analysis going one way or the other, even a 4% swing in one way or the other is really $500,000. That's not going to offset these increases.
No.
So that's why I tried to put it in there to say, like, we can argue over the nuances of the particular assumptions, but it would have to be an enormously, wildly off variance in order to really offset or mitigate some of this.
Other questions, reactions?
This might be an embarrassing question. Do we have full-time kindergarten here in Newmarket? Okay, so the bill that they've got before either the House or the Senate about eliminating half-day kindergarten transportation at noontime wouldn't affect us. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, because our kindergartners are riding the same bus runs.
Yeah, okay.
So on that happy note, does anyone have any preliminary questions for me? I feel like I'm doing one of those plague maps.
It's a tough year.
Yeah, it's a tough year.
You're doing well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. On that thrilling note. Yeah. So the last thing, before we get into action items that we wanted to do was spend some time looking at board goals. This is a conversation that we started to have during the board retreat, and Patty was good enough to jot down all of our ideas, spaghetti that we were flinging at the walls. But we need to start moving towards refining this into an actual set of board goals. And, you know, if you're familiar with the rubric of SMART, you know, we want goals that are measurable, attainable, time-bounded, which is not to say that we can't have some multi-year goals. That's something we really started to embrace last year, which, you know, is a bit of a gamble because obviously our terms are 3 years, and 3 years from now it could be 5 completely different people sitting around this table. But also you know, it has a consequence on the school district if the goals change too often or are too reactive to whatever the issue of the moment is. So, you know, part of what we wanted to try to do was balance some short-term and longer-term initiatives. So there were things that were very, very operational in nature. You know, the finance software, continuing to refine and align the processes to that and improve it. The work Jason's doing on cybersecurity and technology maintenance, to things that were more, I don't want to say high-minded, but just more philosophical and bigger stretches for the board. Increased community engagement, which was a goal of ours last year that we made some amount of progress on. I don't think any of us would honestly say that we got as far as we wanted to. I wouldn't personally, but we made some progress on that. Continuing to, you know, to elevate the profile of the school and the students and the teachers publicly. There were some ideas that were thrown out about that. Thinking a bit about, you know, what education and what opportunity actually means. Somebody had added to the list the goal of trying to find more ways to create ELO, which is short for extended or expanded?
Learning opportunities.
Extended learning opportunities in the community, in the school district. You know, that's, if you have young people in your life who are either in high school or in college, an awful lot of the learning is taking place outside of the classroom setting at this point. It's definitely a trend that, you know, it's not that we aren't doing those things, it's just the thought was we could do more of them. So with that said, we're not going to get to the point of setting these tonight. I mean, not least because Gary isn't here, but also because it's just a pretty big undertaking. But I think one of the things that I wanted to try to get out of this is, you know, if we look at this list of ideas that Patty recorded for us, are there ones that people feel strongly positive about? Are there any that somebody thinks is not appropriate for the board or not the best use of time? You know, does anybody have those kind of strong reactions to this? All right.
I really like the community engagement stuff that's in here. I think that is an important thing to focus on. It's great to hear that it was a focus last year. And seeing some of the ideas that are on here, I am reminded of the Turtle Fest that's coming up just on Saturday, which for anybody who might be watching, go to the Turtle Fest. It's going to be great. But yeah, having a presence at things like that, it certainly seems like it would help us drive community engagement.
Is the Turtle Fest happening physically in this building?
It is, isn't it? Oh my gosh, that's right. I keep thinking,
Can you
because she's
explain
at the
it?
library all the time. But
Can you explain the Turtle Fest?
not really, no. I believe that they're going to be having a few different presenters that are here to show off some turtle ambassadors and also help educate people about the different turtle species that we have here in New Hampshire and in Newmarket specifically. I had a chance to learn about a few of them just at a sort of a precursor event that they did earlier this week at the library, and it was really neat. They had, I I'm doing them a disservice. I wasn't prepared to talk about them, so I'm going to blank on their name. But they will be at the Turtle Fest to correct this. But they were showing off some of the very rare turtles that we have here that they had, live, ones that they had rescued effectively. But it was a very educational experience. My daughter loved it. The whole room full of kids and adults alike seemed very engaged the whole time.
Cool.
Turtles are, not to dive too deep into this, but the company I work for has a facility in Elliott, Maine, and we have a 2-foot-high fence all the way around. People visit and they're like, what is that ridiculous fence? It's like, well, there's endangered turtles who are in the area, so we were required to put this fence in to keep them
Nice.
from wandering into harm's way.
Yep.
And then you've got the turtle crossings down there on,
One thing, I know it's not like the biggest thing on there, but I was just so happy to see I know it's Nancy Miller right now, but the highlighting of a teacher. I just think that like small things like that will bring more, and the ice bucket challenge I know it went viral on social media and whatnot, but
Thanks, Tim.
I think those are the things that are going to allow people to explore a little more on websites, and then maybe they come across the school board agenda. Oh, well, maybe I'll tune in. I think that some of those smaller things are going to help with the goals, not of just a community engagement, and then also engagement with staff, students, families in schools.
I mean, the one looking back at it, this idea that we can collect more data or just spend a little more time and effort on keeping up with what our students are doing after graduation.
yeah, I was going to,
Because we put a great deal of time into developing a vision of a graduate, and we're trying to align all the things we're doing up to the point that they walk across that stage, or that's actually over in the gym graduation normally, but up to the point of that into doing it. But we can't really know how successful we were until we see whether whether the students turned into the people that we hoped that they would be able to become. So to me, that seemed like something really worth putting some effort into. I mean, nobody's going to keep answering surveys forever, but to the extent that we can, see whether there are measurable things we can determine about our graduates.
And I think, so many colleges and universities have, alumni groups. Obviously, it wouldn't necessarily need to be something that was that time intensive or that, complex of a system. But I think people in general really like to tell about, what they're doing, particularly their successes.
Oh, we do have a community that is very connected. We've never actually counted, but a very high percentage, 2/3 to 3/4 of the kids are with us their whole time.
Oh.
So it's not unusual for people to come back, like when we do scholarship nights. I'm amazed at how many alumni are there handing out scholarships. I'm from the class of 93 or 87 or whatever. So I don't think it's as hard as you would think in a small town like this to track down graduates and get information from them, because people like Newmarket. They're not, so our population is fairly easy to track. So it certainly wouldn't be terribly difficult to do something like that.
I think it's even could be incorporated into some sort of committee that we already have.
It's like you're reading my
Alumni
mind.
relations.
I was just going to say, maybe it would make sense for us to consider as like a committee if we really want to consider adding a new committee. And it might not be a long-lived one, because it might just be a matter of getting into the practice of student outreach, former student outreach, graduate outreach, I guess, if you will.
is there, besides maybe something on the walls, is there anything that's put on the Newmarket School's website about the graduating students and what their, like their yearbook? Where are they going? They've just been accepted to so-and-so, or future plans, highlighting them?
Andy's here. Do you want to come up just talk about it? Because- Yeah, we do have the school profile.
Yeah.
So in counseling, we have an updated, every year they update the school profile, which is autobiographical. The last page or part of it is just a straight list of where the most recent graduates are going to school. Visually, throughout the year, right outside my office, Manya and the seminar register created all the places they'll go. And
Yeah.
what we do is when kids apply somewhere, they're making a decision on what the next step is, they get a balloon, they write their name on it, and it's plastered up there. So just this week, we popped up 5 or 6 more as kids start to make finalized decisions. But that's the kind of daily reminder from every kid in the building walks by that and sees that and sees, oh, there's a new red balloon, who is it, where are they going?
Yeah, great.
But in the school profile that we update officially blast on October 1st, you get that full list of where last year's graduates are going. And that gets tracked year after year after year. You can kind of pull back through and see where our kids are going.
That's great. What I saw from another school was they put out a picture of the principal or a teacher or whatever with the student and saying, you know, this is this student, and they put a picture out on their website, a visual. So, of course, that gives more work for the technology department.
Of course. So I know Jamie does a lot with our athletes that are going off to
Yes.
school. We do a major blast when they do signing ceremonies and whatnot.
Yeah.
And obviously, Gary Young, I mean, if I didn't mention the great work that Project Graduation does, probably next week or two, you're going to see all our graduates out downtown on posters. That's a community-based organization that coordinates all post-graduation events. It's a substance-free evening. They also do the lawn signs that all start to come up. And then obviously, like I mentioned, work with Newmarket DPW and Karen over there, who's phenomenal. With the exception, I believe it's 2 students, all of the other parents are invested and interested, and we'll have our graduating class decorated downtown Newmarket and all the street walls. So there's some ways, obviously, we can always do better and find more opportunities.
No,
for
that's
kids
great.
out there, but getting kids out there to show the great work we do
Yeah.
is always a huge priority this time of year.
That's
for our
right.
seniors.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Anything else anyone sees on the list that they wanted to highlight or downvote or? All right, then we'll put a pin in that one, and probably between now and the next meeting, I'll try to do a little work on distilling some of what I think I've heard and put it in front of everybody, and you can tell me how wrong I am, and you know, we'll get there reasonably quickly, because again, part of the reason this is important is Todd's team want to make sure their goals are aligned with ours, or at least not completely contradictory. So.
And typically, the leadership team sets its goals over the summer, so.
All right, we are at the end of our discussion items. Do we have any donations to acknowledge this week?
I think we do.
All right, then we can move right along
I
to,
realize we don't have an action item here for the copier thing, so can we?
would the board be all right if as a number 4 action item, we brought in the photocopier?
Yes.
Copiers / printers. I would not feel good about having kept Jason here all evening if we didn't do that.
Come back next time.
All right, I would look for a motion to approve the minutes from our April 17th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second?
Thank you, Lonnie. Did anybody note anything in those meetings that needs editing or adding, deleting? Yeah,
Looked good to me.
Thank you to Ellen, who's been doing a really good job with those. Well, and also thank you to everyone involved in producing the meetings for TV. I hear from folks that it's been a lot easier to hear and follow and listen to the meetings from home, so hopefully that means more folks will do that. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are 4-0 and 1. Would somebody, I'm going to do this. I never get to do this because I always sit next to Phil. I move that we approve the manifest in the amount of $1,611,016.20.
Second.
Thank you, Lonnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I thought I was going to get stuck with it.
I can end my term happy now. So we have an action item to approve a new special education case manager. Todd, would you like to speak to that?
This is a position that was made vacant by a retirement. Drew Stedman actually has been working for us in a consulting capacity for the last year in our behavioral program, and he's proven himself to be exceptional, and nomination of Drew in front of you tonight is to replace, to fill a vacant case management position at the elementary school.
I would seek a motion to approve the nomination of Drew Stedman as special ed case manager at the elementary school.
So moved.
I'll give that one to Kathy.
Second.
Give the second to Lonnie there.
And I was really happy to see that because that's a position that a lot of schools are struggling to fill.
So, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are unanimous. Welcome Drew Stedman to the Newmarket School District.
And a welcome back, because he's been with us all year.
Oh, okay.
He's a consultant, so he's a great guy.
Wonderful. All right. I'm going to now carefully read we actually need two separate motions to approve the contract. So I would accept a motion to move that the board approve the proposed tax-exempt lease with MST Government Leasing, LLC, for the purposes of refinancing and funding photocopy equipment leases, including consultant fees and related costs of issuances of such leases in an amount not to exceed $167,658.71 and an interest rate of 5.19% per year through August 1st, 2030.
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
Thank you, Lonnie. All those in favor of approving that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You're unanimous.
Can I just
would-
clarify, make sure that the number was, could you just read it again?
Sure.
I know you like reading the manifest numbers.
$167,668.71. Okay.
I thought I heard a 50 in there, but
Yeah,
just checking.
I totally might have messed it up. I would further seek a motion to move that the board authorizes the superintendent or his designee to execute and deliver the tax-exempt lease with MST Government Leasing, LLC, on such terms and conditions discussed and provided to the board, and to execute and deliver any such documents required to execute the contract with Specialized Purchasing Consultants, Inc.
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
Thank you, Lonnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Lonnie?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep. Aye.
It's not official unless I hear you. All right. I do not believe we're in need of a non-public meeting tonight.
Not that I have identified, but if you want to have one, it's your prerogative.
No.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes. So our next meeting will be May the 22nd at 5:15 p.m. Here at the high school. And with that, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Kathy.
Seconded.
Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.